Mike Tyson is one of the most exciting forces the sports world has ever seen. A man whose fists changed boxing history and whose name once echoed through arenas like thunder rolling across the sky. The youngest heavyweight champion ever crowned, the destroyer of giants. The man behind legendary nights like his 91-second destruction of Michael Spinks. Tyson wasn't just a fighter. He was a show, a storm, a once-in-a-century talent rising from the tough streets of Brooklyn with nothing but raw anger and incredible speed. From a childhood buried under poverty, violence, and being left alone, he punched his way upward with a strength the world had never seen. Changing himself from a troubled kid with a lisp into a worldwide icon, feared by champions and loved by millions. But behind the roar of crowds was a life carved by shadows. And today, at 59, the man who once shocked the planet now faces a different battlefield. One filled with regrets, old traumas, weak health, and the kind of pain that no opponent ever managed to knock out. It's heartbreaking how the world's toughest champions often rise from places that try to break them long before the world ever knew their names. Mike Tyson entered this world on June 30th, 1966 in Brooklyn's Fort Greene Hospital. Born into a home already broken by absence and uncertainty. His biological father, Purcell Tyson, disappeared so early, Mike later said he had no memory of him at all. For a short moment, another man, Jimmy Kirkpatrick, stepped into the role of father. But he too walked away when Mike was only 2, leaving behind another quiet wound that shaped the way the boy saw himself. What remained was a tired mother, Lorna Tyson, fighting day and night to keep Rodney, Denise, and little Mike alive as poverty and exhaustion pressed against her like a never-ending storm. They moved through a series of failing apartments until they finally landed in Brownsville, one of New York's toughest neighborhoods, where even hope seemed afraid to stay. Brownsville in the 1970s was a world of cracked sidewalks, flickering street lights, and sirens that owned the night. Inside their drafty apartment with peeling paint and a refrigerator that often held more air than food, Mike learned what hunger, cold, and quiet shame felt like. His oversized glasses and soft lisp made him an easy target. Pushed, mocked, treated as if he were invisible. With a mother stretched thin, siblings struggling, and no adult to protect him, Mike learned a brutal truth. When no one protects you, you learn to survive alone. But high above the noise and chaos on the rooftop, he found the only gentleness life had ever offered him. Pigeons. He built their coops from thrown-away planks, fed them crumbs he saved from school lunches, and whispered secrets into their feathers. Then came the afternoon that shattered it all. A neighborhood boy grabbed Mike's favorite pigeon and left the fragile creature dead on the ground. Something deep inside broke. A fire woke up within him, created not from anger alone, but from fear, pain, and the promise he carried for the rest of his life. He never wanted to feel powerless again. That promise followed him into the streets. Looking for belonging, he hung around older boys who ran with a local crew known as the Jolly Stompers. Trouble became familiar. Police paperwork with his name on it stacked up, and by the time he was 13, he had been arrested nearly 40 times. When the streets grew too loud and too cruel, he slipped into abandoned buildings and used the crumbling walls as practice training grounds. Then in 1978, one desperate, wrong act, snatching a woman's purse, sent him to the Tryon School for Boys in upstate New York. If Brownsville had been harsh, Tryon was colder. For 9 long months, Mike sat in the seat closest to the door, hoping to see his mother. She never came. And then, within those sad walls, fate finally stepped in. One afternoon, Bobby Stewart, a counselor and former boxer, watched Mike hit a heavy bag with a force far beyond his age. In that moment, he didn't see a troubled kid or a lost cause. He saw a spark worth saving. It was the first time in Mike Tyson's life that an adult didn't turn away. Mike Tyson walked into the Catskill Boxing Club at just 14, brought by Bobby Stewart. But inside that dim, dusty gym stood Cus D'Amato, an aging trainer with tired shoulders and eyes sharp enough to see through the armor Mike had spent years building. Cus studied him in silence. Then he spoke the impossible. "I believe you can be the youngest heavyweight champion in the world." The words hit Mike harder than any punch he had ever taken. From that moment, Mike's life changed with a force as sudden as the punches he would one day deliver. Cuz didn't simply open his gym. He opened his home, his dinner table, his late-night talks, his belief. Mike, who had moved between broken apartments and colder nights, now slept under a roof where someone finally left a hallway light burning just to let him know he wasn't alone. But belonging had a price. Cuz demanded discipline with a toughness Mike had never imagined. 4 a.m. runs through freezing Catskill mornings carved ice into his lungs. Then the real training began. 2,000 squats, 2,500 sit-ups, 500 dips, brutal neck exercises designed to make a fighter unbreakable in sparring sessions with grown men. More than once, Mike went to bed sore enough to think he wouldn't wake up the next day. Yet in that pain, something amazing formed. A slow, fragile belief that maybe, just maybe, he could become someone. But every rise demands its price. In 1982, when he was just 16, his mother, Lorna, passed away. Mike had spent years trying to escape the emptiness she left in him. He cried, not only because she was gone, but because she never got to see the man he was becoming. And in that empty space, Cuz stepped forward, not as a trainer. The following year showed the crushing weight of a crown everyone wanted to take from him. By 21, he was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, holding all 3 major belts. The world called him Iron Mike. Everything built toward June 27th, 1988, the night destiny stopped whispering and began roaring. Tyson versus Michael Spinks, the showdown of the decade. When the bell rang, he moved like a force of nature. Moments later, a final combination dropped Spinks to the canvas. 91 seconds. That was all it took. History didn't shift that night. It exploded. Yet at the center of the chaos stood Mike Tyson, while a softer truth stirred beneath the armor. I just wished he could have seen it, he whispered years later. Because for all the glory, all the wealth, all the thunder that followed him, the moment belonged to the boy who climbed from nothing to stand on a summit, so bright the world had no choice but to look up. Even at the very top of the world, where the lights burn brightest and the crowds roar loudest, there are shadows that grow in silence. For Mike Tyson, that shadow began at age 19 when he lost Cus D'Amato in November 1985. Cus was not simply a trainer. He was the father Mike never had. Tyson kept winning after Cus' death, but inside he felt as if someone had taken the hand off the steering wheel of a car still speeding downhill. And 3 years later, when he was 22, Jimmy Jacobs, his gentle, brilliant manager who protected him from the darker corners of boxing, passed away after battling leukemia. When Kevin Rooney was pushed from the team soon after, the last protector of Cus' principles disappeared. Into that emptiness stepped Don King, glittering with promises and temptations that blurred Tyson's sense of direction. With Cus and Jacobs gone, the moral compass that once kept Tyson grounded slipped from his hands. Training shrank. Nights stretched. People surrounded him, but none offered truth. And by early 1990, at just 23, Tyson entered Tokyo undertrained, unfocused, and carrying years of unprocessed grief. The world expected another Tyson destruction. Instead, it saw the greatest upset in boxing history. Buster Douglas, a 42-1 underdog, rose from a knockdown in the 8th round. In round 10, Douglas unleashed a combination that sent Tyson collapsing to the canvas. Confused, searching blindly for his mouthpiece, Tyson experienced the truth every champion eventually faces. Raw talent cannot save a man forever. Discipline must carry him. The descent only deepened. In 1992, at age 25, Tyson faced a conviction that put him behind steel bars for 3 years. Inside prison walls, he faced the versions of himself he had spent years avoiding. He endured isolation, fights, and moments so dark he questioned whether he wanted to continue. But prison also forced him to think. The decline continued. And in 2005, at age 38, sitting on the stool against Kevin McBride, Tyson whispered, "I don't have it in my heart anymore." But the fall was not only physical, it became financial. By 2003, despite earning more than $400 million, Tyson filed for bankruptcy, buried under $23 million of debt. Wild spending drained his fortune. He sold his Connecticut mansion to 50 Cent. Some nights, he slept in small rented rooms or on friends' couches. And yet, even in that ruin, a small spark survived. At age 40, humbled and stripped of everything that once defined him, Tyson began to understand the simplest truth Cuz had tried to teach him decades earlier. A man's worth isn't measured by belts or fame, but by who he becomes when the world stops cheering. His story, scarred, tangled, imperfect, was not ending. It was beginning again towards something wiser, gentler, and finally fully human. There comes a moment in every fallen legend's life when the applause fades, the arena's empty, and a man is left alone with the one truth he can no longer outrun. For Mike Tyson, that moment arrived after his bankruptcy. At 40 years old, stripped of belts, fortune, certainty, and identity, Tyson began a rebirth almost no one believed possible. He turned inward first, long before the world noticed. Therapy replaced chaos. Routine replaced recklessness. Tyson returned to the teachings of Cus D'Amato. Not the uppercuts or footwork, but the principles Cus had whispered when no one else believed in him. His comeback began not in the ring, but on the stage. When Tyson stepped on a Broadway in 2012 with undisputed truth, he walked out carrying his truth in his hands. He spoke openly about loss, regret, grief, and the emotional wound success had never healed. The show became a cultural sensation, proving he could command a room with nothing but honesty. From there, new horizons opened. By the early 2020s, Tyson had rebuilt an estimated $30 million net worth through reinvention, through wisdom, through choosing growth over pride. Now at 59 years old, Mike Tyson stands at a chapter of life few could have predicted. After falling from unimaginable wealth into bankruptcy, Tyson has rebuilt a stable, intentional life with his own hands. His net worth today sits between $25 to $30 million, earned through his globally streamed hotbox and podcast, film and TV appearances, best-selling book deals, international speaking tours, and brand partnerships. His primary home in Las Vegas is a peaceful haven spread across wide desert acreage. Inside are sun-soaked living spaces, polished stone floors, a private gym, a meditation room, and a tennis court specially built for his daughter's training. This home reflects a man who values order over luxury, calm over chaos, and purpose over performance. His greatest transformation lives in the way he wakes each morning. Tyson rises early, meditates, stretches, and follows a training routine designed for longevity rather than dominance. He respects his body like a fragile engine that deserves tenderness. Through his podcast, he shares hard-earned lessons about discipline, patience, and emotional control. His family is the heartbeat of his life today. Milan, born in 2008, is rising in competitive tennis. Morocco, born in 2011, brings him joy in everyday rituals. His older children have grown into adulthood, guided by his unwavering support. His marriage to Kiki remains the anchor of that stability, a partnership built on forgiveness and shared discipline. Beyond his home, Tyson gives back consistently. He supports youth programs, mental health initiatives, and local boxing gyms. His journey proves something rare and powerful, that a person can lose everything and still return stronger, quieter, wiser.